Welcome, everybody, to episode 23 of UnHacked. I'm Justin Shelley, CEO of Phoenix IT Advisors here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, Northern Nevada, and a few other places. And I am joined by Bryan and Mario. Mario, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself? And then, Bryan, let us know who you are.
Mario Zaki, owner of Mastech IT, located in New Jersey, right outside Manhattan. Been in business for 20 years now, and we are saving the world one computer at a time.
Love it.
Yeah, I like that.
Bryan, what do you got?
Bryan Lachapelle with B4 Networks in beautiful Niagara region, Ontario, Canada. And we also help people improve their operations 1% every day.
Every time you introduce yourself, details. Yeah. You always mention how beautiful it is up there.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to come up and see you or something because I'm not sure. I think Northern Nevada is pretty beautiful. Texas is just a big block of concrete, so I'm not sure about that. Or Dallas, anyways. I'm a weird guy that likes the look of mountains and sagebrush. That's Northern Nevada. It's just gray, but I love it. Love it. Mario, what's the scenery like over there in the Northeast?
We've been on like a serious heat wave for 2 weeks now. It's like 95 degrees every day with like a shitload of humidity. It's pretty bad out there.
95's hot for you?
For us, yeah.
That's weird.
For us, yeah.
Yeah.
Like that's what it's like at night here.
Well, that's what I was going to say. In Dallas, it is actually. The low temperature in Dallas is, during the summer, 85, 90 degrees. That's not uncommon. So, Northern Nevada desert, I love that because the mornings are 55 degrees. It's perfect. Good for a run. I love running in the morning. Yeah. Anyways. Exactly. We're not here to discuss geography or the climate or climate change or any of that fun stuff. So let's introduce episode 23. We're going to talk about a relatively recent breach, and this is a big one. We're recording July 18th. This one happened about a month ago, June 19th. A company called CDK was hacked by a ransomware group called BlackSuit, a ransomware criminal organization called BlackSuit. So real quick, and I don't know, do either of you guys know much about BlackSuit?
I have never heard of them before.
Okay, so
I think they're fairly new, actually.
Yeah, they're a relatively recent spinoff of another group. But what about CDK? Mario, can you tell us about CDK, who they are, what they do?
So CDK is a SaaS application, software as a service application for 15,000 plus dealerships nationwide. And they're like an all-in-one type of platform for car dealerships that will help them with, inventory, parts, service, accounting, insurance, pretty much the entire dealerships that are
CRM,
on
so sales and marketing.
Yeah, everything. The entire platform for a dealership is controlled through this software, so it does everything for them. It's got stuff for the salespeople, for the parts, for the owners. Everything is in one box essentially.
Okay. And Bryan, you said that you had noticed actual impact up where you're at, right?
Yeah, I mean, there was dealerships around here as well that are using them. They're global, I guess. So we heard about it all the way up here. Yeah.
What was the impact? Did you go into a dealership? Did you see any of this firsthand? What did you hear?
No, just I had at least 3 people reach out to us saying, "Hey, maybe you can help. Maybe you can help these guys because they've been breached."
Oh.
I'm like, yeah, no, I don't think I can help, but thanks for the referral. So, when either clients of ours and or people who know of us come to us and say, hey, we were at this dealership and they were breached, and maybe you can give them a hand, and then you dig into it a little bit further and find out that it's actually a national or international breach, then gives you an indication of how widespread this was.
Well, and even if it was a local, more of a contained breach, coming in after the fact is pretty tricky. not saying you can't help, but I would argue that where I shine, you guys tell me if you're different, but it's in the prevention. I have been involved in restoring and recovery, but man, we do not want to live there. So
no.
So yeah, after the fact, if somebody comes to me and says, "Hey, I know you don't know anything about me, my business, and what we do, but we've been breached, fix it," I'm like, no.
Well, I mean, the answer is
my
yes,
client,
there's a lot of legalities involved in it, right? So
I'm just saying, without the yes, but remediation, restoring, recovering, forensics, like that's a very specialized service. And you better know a lot about how they do business, and you need to know what the insurance and legal implications are and stuff like that. So
we've been called in after the fact for somebody who has been breached, and forensic ran in and already gathered what they need to gather. And then once they've gathered what they need to gather, they give the green light for restoration. And that's where, someone like us would come in. Yeah, we can help after they've done the analysis, and the legal team has done their legal things, and the insurance team has done their insurance things.
Yeah. Okay, so CDK, very large company, major, like complete outage, right? I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think anything survived this, right? None of because they do a lot of different things. But my understanding is the entire system was down across all of their dealerships. Major disruption in operations. We've all kind of done a little bit of research here. Tell me, and you guys can just kind of fight who goes first, but tell me a little bit about what they did. And I'm not talking about how they restored, but how did they survive the downtime? Any thoughts on that one? You got everything down. You're a dealership. You're trying to sell cars. You're trying to maintain cars. You're trying to order parts. You're trying to, manage relationships, and it's gone. How did the dealerships get through that? They close their doors. What they do?
I mean, from what bits and pieces that has been released, or from what I've gathered, is there are some dealerships that couldn't even offer test drives because certain systems, they actually put all the keys, and they have, if you ever have gone into a dealership that uses like these systems, the keys are connected to like a big magnet that they put into like almost like a small vault into a slot, and that key matches a slot, and it's all inventory. So that car is in like slot number 23. It tells you where the location is of the car. You need to sign it out. You need to scan the person who's going to test drive, like their driver's license, into the system so everything matches. So without them being able to even scan, the person's license or release the key, they couldn't even go on a test. They couldn't even unlock the car. So, you would have to go in there, speak to a salesperson, and all he can do is show you the car from outside, maybe explain some things about it. But I don't think they could even discuss prices or do paperwork or even finalize a deal.
My understanding was that that wasn't the situation for all dealerships. There are some dealerships that had systems in place. They actually took the time to think about how their business would function if they went offline, and put in place systems and processes to allow them to continue to operate. And some of them were able to use manual processes to be able to do that.
That's good.
I can't answer to which ones, but I do know, reading about it and looking at it, and they were saying some dealerships were completely down, and then they were talking about how other dealerships were able to continue to function in a limited capacity. And so,
so this is a key point. I want to kind of pause the conversation and talk about this for a little while. Because I'm actually getting ready to write a book, and this is one of the things I'm going to dig into is how you prepare for and how you handle an incident like this. And I've looked at dozens of canned incident response plans. I mean, how many times does an insurance company say, "Do you have an incident response plan?" So you hit Google, or a client, not us, somebody hits Google, they download the first thing that comes up, and they hand it to their insurance company, and they go, "Here we go, incident response plan." And if you look at those, what does it talk about? Thoughts, guys?
Well, I'll give you a little bit of background there. I approached about 50 different managed service providers throughout North America for their version of what an incident response plan would be. Out of those 50, 10 were able to respond with their incident response plan. The others didn't have one or didn't want to share it, one or the other. Out of the ones that I've seen, none of them talked about how they would protect. They just talked about how they would handle an incident after the fact. And so there was no planning and preparation on how they're going to protect the systems, nor was there anything on how they're going to survive and continue to operate their business during an event. It just talked about what to look for and what actions they were going to take after.
Who to notify, which attorney to call, which PR person to call, who's the insurance company. Yeah, but what do you do while you've got a client sitting in front of you and you can't conduct business? And that, I think, is the biggest problem with...
How do you pay people? How are you going to communicate internally? How are you going to communicate with your clients? How will you continue to perform the daily important functions of your business, which is sales, operations, service delivery, right? How are you going to continue to be able to provide for the clients that are paying you?
Right. That needs to be, like, I would argue, the main focus of an incident response plan. How do you keep making money?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, we all have an example of that, right? We all jointly went to a hotel back a couple quarters ago, and they were breached. And while we were there, they were recovering from that breach, and they had all manual systems and processes in place. And from my perspective, it was a wee bit inconvenient. I had to pay through my cell phone, and I had to get escorted to my room by somebody, at each floor. But beyond that, I didn't notice.
And that was only a few days after the incident, right?
Right.
Yep. I mean, I give it. They did a great job.
Phenomenal
considering,
job.
Yep.
In contrast, and if we go into timelines for CDK, and I've got to start by saying there's nothing. I have found nothing in the media about CDK responding with any official statement. And I went to their website and looked for anything about this at all. There's no mention of it. Go to their press room, their whatever they call it. No mention whatsoever of this breach. So all of this is speculation at best.
Well, all of it's from news articles, right? And one of the things I read was that when the breach first occurred, that they rushed to try to get back online, and that was one of the biggest mistakes, because immediately they were able to the cyber criminals were able to re-breach them a second time because they were still in, right? So they tried to rush their fix, and that actually backfired on them even more than had they just taken a few moments to isolate and lock things down and then remediate once they've confirmed that everything's out. I think the best the best example of it would be like a doctor sewing you back up and there's still debris in the wound, right? Like they have to clean it out. You got to clean it all out, and then you can.
And that's a terrible example, but it's pretty accurate. But damn. So I mean, one of the frustrations that I have in working in this industry is the information we get that we would love to be able to learn from is very, very limited. It's always kept under, cards are played close to the chest. There's very little official information. So there's speculation. There's what we can gather from news articles. And even a lot of that is speculation. But that said, we have a kind of a basic timeline. Yeah, they get hit. They tried to recover, which we don't really know exactly what that entailed. They're re-breached. 2 days later, they pay out $25 million to the ransom, right? So let's talk about that for a minute. And this can be we've debated this before. We've heard it debated before, but do you or do you not pay the ransom? And if you do, and if you don't, what are the ramifications? So let's start with, what are the cases where you absolutely have to pay the ransom? Because, I mean, if you pay it, you've looked at everything else, right? Probably.
Yeah. Well, you pay it when you have no way of recovering. So if you have no backups and you have no way of getting back access, or it was I think they call it double exfiltration, where basically they've not only breached you and encrypted your documents, but also downloaded a copy of them and are threatening to share it in the greater with the greater population. Mind you, they might do that anyway and keep extorting you down the road. So do you pay? Don't you pay? I guess that's the question, right?
Yeah, it's if you really have to. I guess, if there's no other choice. Because $25 million is a good amount of money.
And you have to also be careful, because if you pay at least not, I don't know what the rules are here in Canada, but I've heard from colleagues in the US that if you pay and that organization is on a terror list or whatever the case may be, that you may actually be committing some sort of criminal act by paying the ransom. So you have to also take that into consideration. Is paying the ransom going to get you in legal trouble? So.
I mean, yeah, it just all around, this is a shitty situation. There's no good outcome to this, which is why I love to live in the world of prevention. But yeah, so if you pay it, number one, it could be illegal to pay it. Number two, you may or may not. Now, I'm going to pause again and say they actually do pride themselves in customer support. These bad guys.
Yeah.
Listen, they're running a business, and if word gets out that ransoms are paid and people don't get their information back, then there's no chance people are going to pay, right? They have to have the good track record. They need that 5-star Google review that, I paid my ransom and goddamn, I got my stuff back immediately. 5 stars, definitely recommend the BlackSuit ransom group, right? So they want their reviews positive. They are going to give it back to you if they can, but they might leave a back door. Okay.
And then come back. And it puts a bigger target on you, because now that group you paid and another group might say, hey, this group pays, right? And now they're going to go out of their way to try to breach you because they know you're willing to pay.
Right.
Yeah, and I don't think they ever, when you get breached and you actually pay them, I don't think they ever tell you, oh, by the way, this is how we got in.
They weren't going to tell you. Hopefully you can find some information through the forensics on that one.
Yeah.
Interesting
thing. If I'm paying $25 million, I want to know how you got in, when you got in. I want you to fix it.
Oh, you think the bad guy is going to tell you that? Yeah. Good luck. Good
you
luck.
want to know something that's really, really, I don't want to say interesting or funny, because it's not funny, and but there's still some interest to it. I once had a client who not only, because we didn't pay the ransom, but they were a client where we were only doing backup. So just for the record, we were not doing cybersecurity solutions for them. So we had no way of knowing whether or not their systems were compromised to begin with. But they were compromised. They had their files encrypted. And by the time they reached out to us to let us know that they were encrypted and wanted our help in recovering it, again, only doing backup, we went back to a week ago, still encrypted, 2 weeks ago, still encrypted. We went all the way back to, different times. And it was, wait a minute, this is a different encryption. They were encrypted, and then another organization breached them, and they were encrypted again, and another organization breached them, and they were encrypted a third time. So as we were going back into the history of this particular client, they were breached 3 times in succession on top of each other. And it turns out one of the owner's kids was using the server as a Bitcoin miner.
Oh God. Yeah. Okay. Brilliant.
Did you even like at that point? I would tell them, I'm like, sorry, we can't help you.
I mean, we were able to recover them back to age, I think it was like three months in the past, but it is what it is. We weren't doing cybersecurity for them at the time. Now we don't give people the option. They want to work with us. We have to do cybersecurity for this very reason. It's still a stain on our name if they get breached one way or the other. So
now, we had a prospect. Somebody, how like we all are offer at the end of our podcast, we offer a security network system. So we did this for a company, and this was about 3 years ago, maybe a little less. We ended up going out there doing a security. We gave them an audit. We're like, you need to fix this, this, and this. You don't have like a proper backup. You don't have this. The guy's like, okay, thank you. Didn't hear from him, for months. Then one day he called us. It was like I think it was like 7:00 at night on like a Friday.
Oh no.
And he's like, hey, we just got encrypted. All our data is encrypted, and he's panicking. He's like, I need your help. We need to, we'll pay whatever. We ended up going and checking out everything. Like, obviously they weren't even a client, at that point. They were just like, they became a client after they got breached. And it was a breach. They actually work with a lot of government facilities, so they actually had to contact the FBI.
Oh God.
And the FBI told them, do you have a NAS device made by QNAP, which is a very popular NAS company, on your network? He's like, yeah, that's what we have. He's like, all right, they've been hitting everybody. He's like, honestly, the FBI told him, he's like, honestly, check the encryption message that they're asking for, for whatever, and you're probably better off paying it because they're not asking for that much. They only asked for about $450.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, the good old
when,
days.
yeah, no, this was like 2.5, 3 years ago.
Yeah, the good old days.
It turned out, I think the hacker was like somebody that knew like a back door and wasn't trying, like he was, an honest hacker. And I think he was just kind of
Honest.
like, and then when we ended up buying some, like $450 worth of Bitcoin, and we ended up paying it off for him. Obviously, we built it back, but it wasn't that bad. That was the only time where we're like, yeah, it's cheaper for you to just pay the ransom.
Okay, so let's talk about the money, right? So $450 versus what we're talking about today, $25 million. This is not random. So how do they set the price when the bad guys are asking for a ransom? How are they setting that price, Bryan?
Well, I just learned this today from you, Justin. Apparently,
don't rat us out on our behind-the-scenes conversations. God damn it!
Apparently, these very clever criminals who have not only found a way into your network and gained access to your network will actually look through your data on your server and your files to figure out if you have an insurance policy. They will download said insurance policy. They will look through it and see how much you're covered for, and that's how they come up with the number that they want to ransom you for. Because they know if you've got cyber insurance and you're covered for $1 million, then you're probably going to be okay with paying up to $1 million.
Right.
But
and I had heard before
they probably won't get it.
Probably they'll get half. I had heard before that they look at your bank balances. If they, if they get into your system, they're going to watch you get online and look at how much money you got in the bank. So yeah, these are very targeted. Usually these attacks are very targeted. They're, it used to be, I think, a lot of this stuff was more broad, more of a shotgun approach. But these high dollar ones, they spend a lot of time and effort getting in and knowing you, knowing your organization, and knowing exactly what it is they can get from you before they make those demands. So that kind of sucks. Okay, so on the 19th, they get hit, right? And then 2 days later, whatever they tried to do didn't work, and they go ahead and decide to pay the ransom. Now, customer service being what it is, pay the ransom, flip a switch, back up and running immediately, yes?
No, actually, they...
That'd be nice.
Actually, from what I read, is that it still took them 2 weeks to completely bring everybody back online, and they were turning on like 50 dealerships per hour. They weren't putting them all, it wasn't just all right away.
Yeah. And when you look at, okay, so the $25 or $25 million ransom, that sounds huge. But the total, and these are analysts looking at it and taking guesses. Like I said, this is all conjecture at best. But the estimated total impact, the total financial impact of this breach across all the dealerships and everything else is over $1 billion. So the ransom is really the smaller part of this. When you look at the downtime, when you look at the disruption to service, when you look at the cost of restoring, because it's not just a switch that you flip. Fine, get the encryption key, then what?
Right.
I mean, how much stuff was encrypted? How much of that you have to go around manually? And God, it's a disaster. It's a pain in the ass. So impact was huge. Financial, emotional. Do we really think much about that? Do you guys want to be on the IT team that has to restore all this?
No,
because I don't.
Not at all.
No.
Do you know how many people are screaming at you?
Yeah. I did one of those IR games a couple of weeks back, and it was one of those like the biggest disaster of your life kind of thing, where where the situation was like, as an MSP, we're pretending we were the ones breached, and my heart was racing the entire time.
Yeah, no kidding. Did your Apple Watch start alerting you that you need to call the doctor? Your heart rate's too high.
Have
you ever had that happen? Okay, tangent.
No,
for another day.
Well, I mean, I'll tell you this. Back in college, I actually used to work for a car dealership. I was a salesperson. I only did it for a couple months because it was just too aggravating. But my salary back then was, what was this, like $200 a pay period plus commission.
Right.
So $200, like, you can't do shit with $200. So you're mostly salary based. So these these employees of the dealerships were screwed themselves because they can't work. They can't sell any cars. So imagine half your month, you're not able to. And the thing is, it happened towards the end of June and the beginning of July. That's where, you have to hit quotas, and that's where you start getting, the better deals, and, they're trying incentives and stuff like that.
Sales coming up, July 4th sales, that's going to be a big thing. Yeah. And I would guess, I don't know, but I would guess that $1 billion, $1 billion plus, does take that stuff into account. But I don't know that we always think about that when we're looking at incident response plans, right?
Right.
How does the company affected? But how are the employees impacted?
Well, and the customers, some of them are pressing charges and lawsuits, right? So now,
so let's talk about lawsuits. I mean, we did an episode. It's been a minute. I want to go find the title because I was kind of proud of my title, but it's oh, sorry you were hacked. Here's a $480 million lawsuit to brighten your day. We're only talking about the current situation with these guys, and the lawsuits haven't really hit yet. So who knows what that's going to end up being? But
well, and when they're busy taking care of the lawsuits, now your attention is like elsewhere, no longer on providing service to your clients, no longer on growing your organization or growing your business. Now the leadership team is solely focused on this lawsuit and what's happening with this lawsuit, and it's a huge distraction, not only from the point of view that you're not going to be able to work on the business, but also you may have to pay out all sorts of like lawyer fees and investigation fees and fines and whatever settlement you eventually end up settling at.
Yeah.
And don't forget, they're probably going to lose a good amount of those customers, their customers, you know.
Somebody's going to decide to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Right. And this is what I do not like about consolidation in industry. So this company had a significant percentage of the market share. In our industry, names redacted, there is a giant company who is buying up everything in the MSP space, right? And this drives me crazy because now that you've got one massive target for the criminals to breach, that's terrifying to me. I hate that.
And it's happened.
They were already breached. I know the one that's buying everybody up. They've already been breached. Jesus Christ. Let's rein it back in before my watch starts telling me to go to the doctor. So, again, I've said it before. I'll say it again. My biggest frustration working in the world of cybersecurity is that we don't have the real solid inside detail of what has happened in a case like this, unless we're directly involved with it, or unless we can talk to somebody who is directly involved with it. That said, we do
learn from it.
We can. It's difficult to learn from it, but we have a little bit of information here that, based on one of these lawsuits, we can assume, or we can guess, that one of the shortcomings that they are alleging is in security awareness training. Bryan, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so one of the lawsuits that are being brought forward accuses that, or at least talks about how part of the responsibility or part of the reason for the breach was a lack of cybersecurity training for the employees, and that because of that, we can infer, I guess, that it's likely that the breach began because of either a phishing attempt, a social engineering attack, or something directed towards an employee specifically, that they were able to use those people's credentials. But then it went one step further. Apparently, once they were in, they were able to move across the network laterally and essentially gain access to other systems that had proper security been put in place, least privilege, then that person's access would have been restricted, and so they wouldn't have been able to get into other systems that maybe that person had no business being in the first place. But yeah.
So Bryan, dumb that down for us a little bit and talk to. I don't like that I just said dumb down, and now I'm going to say talk to business owners because, but they're not in our world, and I know exactly what you're talking about. But let's just say I own a business. I have no fucking idea what you just said.
Okay, so let's assume that you run. I like using this analogy because this analogy is really easy to work with. Imagine you're the CEO of a bank, right? Not just one bank, but many branches of your bank. And imagine, you have, I'm the CEO, so I should have access to everything, right? Including every single vault and the codes for every single vault. And I'm going to put those codes, and I'm going to have access to everything. So if somebody breaches me, they have access to all these vaults. does that seem logical? Or should the CEO of the big, huge, giant bank not have access to every single vault because he doesn't need to go into those vaults in the first place, right? So it's kind of the same thing when you're talking about a network. Just because I'm the boss, just because I'm the CEO, doesn't mean I need global administrative rights to absolutely everything, or even access to everything in the entire organization, right? I don't need keys to every single door. I only need keys to the doors I personally need to get into, and the people who work for me will have keys to the things that they need access to. And it's kind of the same philosophy. You only give yourself access to the tools, the systems, the data, and the applications that you absolutely need access to do your day-to-day job.
Right. For example, I do not have, if I log into my email admin portal,
right,
I don't have access to anything. Now I can go get those credentials and I can log in as an administrator and I can do what I need to do, but I have to go through great lengths to get there. Right. So that's kind of what we're talking about here. So okay, so we've got that. This is potentially, allegedly, a failing on the security team, on whoever set that up may or may not have set it up properly, right? Again, this is all conjecture. We don't know this for sure. And then the other one, but it is a key takeaway. Like, this is something that we can learn from. And then the other side of this is training your people. And then according to the lawsuit, I guess not only, well, if I am in this position and I want to fight a lawsuit, I have to have not only trained people, provided them the opportunity for training, but what?
You have to have records of having done that.
Got to have it documented.
Right.
And coincidentally,
it's not enough to just say, hey, here's some training, take it if you want. It's here's your training. Oh, you didn't take the training. You need to take the training. Oh, you haven't taken the training yet. Now I'm going to put you on the path, right? Or on some sort of disciplinary path, because no different than if somebody were putting an employee at risk from a safety perspective, right? Like, they're breaching safety precautions in an environment. They're not taking safety training. They're not following safety procedures. If you have somebody who's abusing cybersecurity and they are not willing to participate in cybersecurity, they are putting your entire business, not just one person physically at risk, but everybody that works for you at risk, both physically and financially.
So, it's not optional. It should not be optional. It should be part of their daily, weekly, monthly tasks, whatever you set up. It's just like, like technicians, you have a ticket board. Here's the, ticket 1, here's ticket 2, ticket 3. You can't just keep avoiding ticket 2. This is a task. It has to be completed. If just like other owners of IT, if your technician is not doing their task, guess what? They're gone. And so training should be just the same, if not more important.
Across all employees, even people who don't necessarily deal with technology on a day-to-day basis, right?
Yeah. Coincidentally, I was actually on with, because I'm moving vendors, security awareness training is something that has historically been very difficult for me to enforce, to roll out, to enforce, to report on. The system isn't terrible, but it's not easy for either me to administer or my clients to use. And so the demo I was on earlier today, rolling it out as a click of a button to an entire organization. You don't have to configure anything. And then the reporting is amazing. You just run the report that I can go take to my client and say, here are your problem employees right here. It's all documented. And then it's on them, of course, to do remedial training or to terminate, or, whatever they're going to do. But yeah, you've got to have that system in place. You have to be able to document the process that you took, and then you have to be able to document any weaknesses. And by that, I mean people who aren't doing it right. So with the limited information we have about this breach, that's what I would call my primary takeaway, is just the importance of this security awareness training, which I've preached forever, but I haven't necessarily preached the importance of the documentation of it, having that procedure in place. So guys, I think I've said just about everything I have to say, and maybe a little bit more. So we're going to roll. That was my key takeaway. And you guys can throw anything else out there you've got. And then we're going to sign off, and we'll be back next week with some more. So Mario, why don't you go ahead and wrap this up, and then Bryan.
For me, a key takeaway is, like we mentioned earlier, an incident response. If shit hits the fan, what are you going to do? Test it. Have a drill, blow up. Not literally blow up, but like unplug your stuff and see how could you recover. Is it a whole new server? How long is it going to take? What's the impact? Actually inconvenience yourself, and now under a controlled environment versus an uncontrolled environment. It is a pain in the ass, but do it.
Yeah. Bryan?
I think my key takeaway is probably one of the same ones I would say over and over again, and that is treat cybersecurity as a journey. You won't be able to get it all done day one, but if you go into it with the intent that I am responsible for cybersecurity, everybody is at an organization, especially the leadership team. You are responsible. You cannot abdicate responsibility. So take it as a journey and just try to improve it bit by bit. And as you know, my 1%, so improve 1% every single day. Just do one thing a week to improve cybersecurity, whether that is doing some training, whether it's implementing something new, but always be looking to what comes next. What do we do now to improve? That's it.
Okay. I almost thought for a minute you were going to miss that 1% part, and I wouldn't let you get away with it. But
No.
all right, guys, we are going to wrap up for today. As always, go to unhacked.live. I said that kind of weird. Unhacked, not inhacked. Unhacked.live. We've got social media links there. You can see all of our previous episodes. There's full transcript of every episode. And if you find value in this, please share it with your colleagues. Help us spread the word, because we are trying to, yes, we're all trying to run businesses, grow our audience, and make money. But that said, there's good information here that can help all of us fight this stupid, ridiculous, atrocious war on Russian hackers. They're not all Russian, but I like to say it that way. So that's all I've got. Mario, Bryan, thank you for being here. Guys, we'll see you next week. Take care.
Bye, guys.
Thank you. Bye.